A blood-soaked cage, a roaring crowd in Chicago's United Center, two warriors, one belt, and a collision that could redefine the middleweight division. Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev at UFC 319. This isn't just a fight. It's a war between a champion who thrives in chaos and a challenger who's never tasted defeat. The air is thick with tension as the world waits to see if the South African king can hold his throne against the relentless force of Boers. Dricus Du Plessis, the man they call Still Knocks, has carved his name into UFC history with a trail of broken opponents and a belt around his waist. South Africa's first UFC champion, he's a fighter who doesn't just win, he survives, adapts, and overcomes. His journey to the top wasn't paved with easy victories. At UFC 297, he faced Sean Strickland in a grueling split-decision war that left fans divided and scorecards tight. Some screamed robbery, others saw a masterclass in pressure. Du Plessis didn't care about the noise. He walked out of Toronto with the middleweight title and a chip on his shoulder. 7 months later, at UFC 305, he stared down Israel Adesanya, a legend of the sport, and choked him out in the 4th round. A moment that silenced doubters and cemented his reign. Then, at UFC 312, he faced Strickland again, leaving no doubts with a unanimous decision that showcased his evolution. 23 wins, 2 losses, and a 9-0 record in the UFC. Dricus Du Plessis doesn't just fight, he finds a way to win, no matter how ugly it gets. Across the cage stands Khamzat Chimaev, the undefeated phenom who's been a nightmare for every opponent he's faced. 14 fights, 14 wins, and a reputation that sends shivers through the division. Born in Chechnya, fighting out of the United Arab Emirates, Chimaev is a force of nature. His wrestling is suffocating, his striking vicious, and his will unbreakable. In 2020, he burst onto the UFC scene, setting records with the fastest turnaround between fights in the modern era. 2 wins in 10 days on Fight Island, dismantling opponents like they were sparring partners. But it hasn't all been smooth. A brutal battle with COVID-19 nearly ended his career, slowing his meteoric rise. Since 2022, he's fought sparingly, only 3 times in 3 years, but each performance has been a statement. Gilbert Burns pushed him to the limit in a Fight of the Night classic. Kamaru Usman felt his power in a decision loss. And at UFC 308, Robert Whittaker, a former champion, crumbled under Chimaev's face crank submission in the 1st round, losing teeth in the process. That's the kind of violence Chimaev brings. Now, he's got his first shot at UFC Gold, and he's hungry to make history. The stage is set for August 16th, 2025 at UFC 319. Chicago's United Center will be electric, with fans buzzing for a main event that pits 2 undefeated UFC records against each other. Du Plessis, the champion, versus Chimaev, the challenger. A clash of styles, wills, and destinies. If you're watching this channel, you're part of the MMA Arena community, where we dive deep into the stories that make this sport unforgettable. Hit that subscribe button to stay locked into the drama, the fights, and the moments that define the octagon. Now let's talk about what makes this fight so special. Du Plessis knows the challenge ahead. Speaking on Fox 32 Chicago, he didn't mince words. Khamzat is world-class in wrestling and grappling, but this isn't wrestling or wrestling. This is MMA. We're not fighting for the wrestling title. We're fighting for the UFC title, and that's where I'm the best. His confidence isn't arrogance, it's earned. Du Plessis has faced the best in the world and walked away with his hand raised. His unorthodox style, awkward angles, relentless pressure, and a knack for turning fights into dogfights has broken fighters who thought they had him figured out. Sean Strickland couldn't outlast him. Israel Adesanya couldn't outsmart him. Robert Whittaker couldn't outstrike him. Now, Chimaev steps into the cage, believing his grappling will be the difference. But Du Plessis is betting on chaos. He wants to make this fight ugly, to drag Chimaev into deep waters, where cardio and heart matter as much as technique. Chimaev, though, isn't fazed. Back in September 2024, he called Du Plessis a bad version of me. We have the technique, wrestling, counter-wrestling to take him down and hold him. His confidence is chilling. Chimaev's game plan is no secret. Take the fight to the ground, smother Du Plessis, and finish him. He's taken down every opponent he's faced in the UFC, except for Gerald Meerschaert, who he knocked out in 17 seconds. His grappling is relentless, a suffocating blanket that leaves fighters gasping for air and answers. But there's a question mark: his cardio. Critics, including Din Thomas on X, have pointed out that Chimaev is a sprinter, explosive in the early rounds, but untested in the championship waters of a 5-round war. Du Plessis, with his iron chin and relentless pace, thrives in those later rounds. Can Chimaev keep up when the fight turns into a grind? Or will Du Plessis' durability and adaptability expose cracks in the challenger's armor? The trash talk has already begun, and it's getting personal. In May 2025, Chimaev took a shot on X, posting a picture of Du Plessis and his coaches with donut emojis, mocking their physiques. Du Plessis fired back with a verbal haymaker, tweeting, "Oh, shit would get you, but there's no inbred emoji." Fans erupted, with some calling it a Conor McGregor-level burn. One X-user wrote, "DDP woke up and shows violence," while another predicted DDP by 4th round KO. The South African fans flooded the thread, chanting his name and waving digital flags, but Chimaev's supporters didn't back down, with one X-user sarcastically comparing Du Plessis' shredded physique to Popeye after a can of spinach. This isn't just a fight, it's a grudge match fueled by pride and bad blood. The stakes couldn't be higher. For Du Plessis, it's about legacy. A third title defense would solidify him as one of the greatest middleweights ever, a champion who took on all comers and walked away standing. He's not just fighting for himself, but for South Africa, a nation that sees him as a symbol of resilience. His training camp has been brutal, with his coach offering a 10K prize to anyone who can put him down in sparring. Nobody's claimed it. Du Plessis' Instagram posts show a man in peak condition, his physique chiseled, his mindset razor sharp. "This one's going to be special," he captioned, a promise to his fans and a warning to his foe. For Chimaev, this is the moment he's been chasing since he stepped into the UFC. He's assembled an all-star training camp, including legendary wrestling coach Salim Mutsalkanov, who trained Olympic champion Buvasar Saitiev. Chimaev's been working on everything: striking, grappling, even cardio, to counter the doubts about his endurance. Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of the sport's greatest, offered advice on X, warning Chimaev to abandon his usual game plan. "Dricus is tough. He's gonna scrap. He throws a ton of hands and legs constantly." Chimaev's response: silence in public. But his training speaks volumes. He's all in, ready to prove he's not just a contender, but a champion. The fight card around them is stacked. Lerone Murphy faces Aaron Pico in the co-main event, a featherweight clash that could steal the show. Jared Cannonier takes on Michael Page in a middleweight striker's delight. Jeff Neal and Carlos Prates square off in a welterweight manger. But all eyes are on the main event, where two undefeated UFC records collide. Du Plessis, the champion, versus Chimaev, the challenger. A clash of styles, wills, and destinies. Liming Sarl Luthi won August 16, 2025, is more than a date. It's a moment. The United Center will shake with the roars of 20,000 fans, each one holding their breath as the cage door locks. Du Plessis, the champion who thrives in chaos, versus Chimaev, the challenger who embodies destruction. One man will walk away with the belt, the other will taste defeat for the first time in the UFC. This is MMA at its purest: heart, skill, and the will to survive. Chicago will bear witness to a fight that could change the sport forever.